today's section. Today's section is hosted by the Winnipeg Fabric and Power BI user group, located in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. We are still a small community, but we are growing. And one of the things that we usually do as part of our, our monthly community impact is to bring experienced professionals who have done one or two things on Fabric, and they can show us, demo for us some of these important topics, and you can learn from them. That's the main thing. sorry about that. Now, today we have somebody who is experienced. He's a data engineering guru. Let me put it that way. So her name is Funmi Obisesan, and I'm going to just tell us a little about her. So Funmi is a data professional with 5 years of experience across data analysis, data science, and data engineering. Funmi has applied machine learning techniques in practical projects, with some of her work referenced in academic thesis. She's also a published technical writer who has also contributed to platforms such as Free Code Camp, VD and Eat Subscribe. In 2022, she was recognized as the top author on the Free Code Camp for her machine learning articles. She has worked across the energy, retail, and software sectors and is currently focused on data engineering. She worked as a data engineer at Eric, building data pipelines and workflows using tools such as Azure Data Factory and Microsoft Fabric. She's passionate about supporting emerging data talent and sharing insights on the evolving data profession. Even me, I saw the profile. I'm like, God, see profile. Oh, God. Okay, so not to waste our time at all, today is straight to the point. Funmi will introduce to us data pipelines in Microsoft Fabric. Now, before I bring Funmi to the floor to start, let me just say one or two things. As a community, the way we grow is by learning from each other. That's number one. Number two is that let's make this section interactive. It means that along the line, you can be asking her questions. Something is not clear. You don't have to wait to the end of everything. But if you want to do that, we're fine. But if you can be asking her questions during the section, it's also fine, depending on the way you want to go about it. So let's be interactive. Let's be receptive. Let's open our mind to learn something. I mean, for me, I think the hardest part of the whole data engineering part is people understanding pipeline architecture. Why do I need to do this activity? Why do I need to make this decision at this point in time? Depending on the scenario and the case study that we have, we determine what we are going to do. So, Funmi, I'm not the guest speaker for today. You have the floor. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mawaga. Benga, thank you for this opportunity. Good afternoon or good morning. I don't know what time it is in Canada. So, hello, everyone.
We are still in the afternoon anyway.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here today to speak about data pipelines in Fabric. When Mawaga Benga told me about coming to take this class, I almost ran away from it because honestly, I feel myself I'm still learning. But I was telling Benga that I think I'm still a rookie, I'm still a beginner. Maybe when I have 7 or 10 years experience in data engineering, I can do sections like this. But life, we are constantly learning. Life is a journey of learning. So I finally agreed to do this, and I'm happy I accepted to be. So it's great to be here this afternoon to talk about what I love, data. As Benga was saying when he was reading my portfolio, I have been doing data for the last 5 years. I write, talk, and speak about data. The only reason I wanted to decline this was because it was data engineering. I tried to avoid data engineering topics, but as we grow, we also learn. So let's get started on today. Okay, I think I'm ready to share my screen. Good. So welcome everyone, good afternoon. So today we'll be looking at data pipelines in Microsoft Fabric. It's going to be a demo class, so this is not a literature class, so I won't be reading much more of the slide, you'll be doing a lot of demo on Fabric itself. But to give a brief introduction on what we'll be talking about today, like I said, it's pipeline, Microsoft Fabric, talking about pipelines. How does pipeline works in Microsoft Fabric? What exactly is pipeline? What does it do? And when do we use pipelines in Fabric? So also majorly today, we're talking about some pipelines activities like parameters and variables. These are things in Fabric that aid your pipelines. When we start talking about it, you see the importance of these two things. It's not just about building pipeline to copy data from one source to a destination. When you know the application of some of these things, like the parameters, the variables, it makes doing your pipeline quite much more easier. So we'll be looking at these two major things, parameters and variables. But before going into that, we're discussing pipelines in general. And we'll be building a pipeline first before we go into parameters and variables. So Benga already read this already, so there's really no need for this. This is just a brief intro about me, data professional. I've worked across data analysis, data science, and data engineering. I started as a data analyst, but as time grows, you think there's much more out there for you. So I spent also some time doing data science, building machine learning models before I pivoted fully to data engineering. And I think data engineering has been the most fulfilling aspect for me so far. So we're going to go to parameters, like I said, parameters and variables. But before that, I'd like us to go into Fabric first and do a demo on pipeline. What pipeline is? Let's have a discussion on that and do a demo before we go into parameters and variable. So let me stop sharing this and share my Fabric screen. All right, please can you confirm if you can see this screen?
We can. I can see your screen.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
guys. So like I said, we'll start with discussing data pipelines before we move into the core aspects, the parameters and the variables. So what are data pipelines? I'm sure we all here are quite familiar with the term pipeline, data pipelines. They are basically, data pipeline basically involves you moving data from a source to a destination. When you have quite a lot of data, you store them maybe in a database or wherever it is you store them. You can't do much more with it when in the storage format where it is in a database. So oftentimes when you want to explore data, when you want to analyze it, you have to move it from the database where it is to maybe Fabric to Power BI or wherever it is that you can build the reports, build visuals. So that's why data pipelines comes in. It helps you take your data from the source, could be your database, your SQL Server database, your Azure DB, take data from that source to your destination, to your lakehouse, to your warehouse, to your Power BI, to wherever it is you want to do most of your analysis. So it's basically a vehicle. I describe it as a vehicle that takes data from one source to a destination. In Fabric, when I started working with Fabric, I was quite surprised of how Fabric offers quite a whole lot of things you can do. I mean, there's really nothing data engineering that you can think of that you can't do with Fabric. And the reason why I actually love working with Fabric is that simplified your data engineering process. It's not as archaic or not as complex as it was before. I mean, when I was learning, there was a lot of writing Python scripts to move data from one source to a destination. But with Microsoft Fabric, it has simplified your data engineering process. It has simplified concepts. It has cut steps by maybe from 10 to 2 to 3. So I think Fabric is one of most fundamental tools for data engineering, if I do say that. So like I said, we're discussing pipeline. We're going to be doing a demo, moving data from a particular source to a destination. Our demo today, there's no database, because I do not have like a I call it a demo DB database I can use. So we'll be doing a demo to move data from a lakehouse to a warehouse. I think Benga mentioned that there was already a class that talked about the architecture of Fabric, about the workspace, lakehouse, warehouse, and all. So I won't spend much time on that, going through what's a lakehouse, what's warehouse, what's Fabric workspace is. So I'll be moving straight to data pipeline. As you can see, I have a workspace here called Fabric Workshop. Let me just give a brief intro on what a workspace is. A workspace is basically where you get your work done. It has your pipelines, your lakehouse, your warehouse, and quite a plethora of other things you do. So when you want to do a project or maybe project related to one part, you can do maybe a finance workspace, a customer segment workspace, and also I created a workspace called Fabric Workshop. And in the workspace, we can see we have a lake house. This lake house, I just did a demo, so we can use this for today's class. lakehouse. We have a lakehouse that I named lakehouse parameters variables. We have a warehouse that I named warehouse parameters variables. And the naming of this is based on what it is that you're working on. So I just named it for the sake of this class, for the sake of this demo. So I created a lakehouse. And by the way, these things are not much, they are not quite complicated. Like I mentioned with Fabric, it's quite easy to get things done with Fabric. So if you want to create a lakehouse or a warehouse, you can always go to new item, create lakehouse warehouse, or go to your workspace rather, create warehouse lakehouse. So it's not so out of the universe. So like I said, we're going to create a new pipeline today to move data from a source to a destination. You come to your workspace. This is my workspace here, Fabric Workshop. I go here, new item. Then you can see Fabric offers you a whole lot of things. I mean, I don't think I've explored Fabric capabilities up to 10% because every other day I'm discovering a whole new thing about Fabric. I mean, this tool is much more than you could describe. There are quite a whole lot of things that you can get done with it. So when you come to new item, you can see a whole lot of different things here that you can do on Fabric. But what we are discussing today is pipeline. So you look for pipeline, click pipeline. You name your pipeline, whatever it is that you want to name it, basically related to your project. So you know what it is. Like when you see a pipeline, you can say, okay, this pipeline is for this and this. So you should always give it a name that describes stuff that's related to the project you're working on. So I'll just name this pipeline, okay, pipeline demo. Pipeline demo. So I create. Please, if you want me to do a recap of any of the steps, please, you can always come back. Also, I can't see my screen, so I can't see hands raised up, but you can always unmute yourself and ask question. So like I said, I created a new item, that's a pipeline. Pipeline has been created. So I come here, pipeline activity. And what we are going to do is copy data because we are moving data. We want to move data from a source to a destination. It's not just you going to and select, okay, new item, pipeline. So when you select pipeline, what exactly do you want the pipeline to do? Is it copy job? Is it copy data? Is it data flow? What exactly is pipeline? What's activity in the pipeline do you need? So we click copy data. And when the copy data comes up, when you click that, it shows you this. Fabric, like I said, simplifies everything. So there's not a million steps for you to move data from one place to another. It's not up to 100 or it's never up to a 50 or 20 step. So when you click on this, you can see general. Here is just the name, whatever name you want to give your pipeline. Let me just call it a pipeline demo. So when you come here, you can see source, destination, as the name implies, basic English. Source is basically telling you what the data you want to move, where is it located, where is the source? Is it an Azure database? Is it a SQL server? Is it an on-prem SQL server? Is it a SharePoint link? Whatever it is, there are quite a whole lot. Is it a MySQL database or Postgres DB? Your data could be in anywhere. So the source is to select, okay, my data is in Azure DB or is in SQL Server, is in a Postgres database, wherever it is your data is located. You need to tell Fabric where it is. So your source here says, like I said, if you want to move our data from lakehouse to warehouse, in while you like doing real work, the major workflow is usually moving data from, like myself, where I work. The major workflow is usually moving data from an Azure database to a lakehouse or from an Azure DB to a warehouse. It's usually from Azure to lakehouse or warehouse. But like I mentioned earlier, there's no DB here for demo. So we're going to just do it from a lakehouse to a warehouse. First, let me check the data in the warehouse and lakehouse to show you. I want to show you the content, the tables present in the lakehouse and the warehouse at the moment. So this is the lakehouse. You can see some of the tables present here at the moment. You can see dimension city, dimension customer. By the way, Fabric generated this data for me. I just created generate data and it did all this, it just generated all this for me so I can use for the demo. You can see dimension dates, dimension employee, dimension stock item, fat sales. So this is data related to sales and all. You can see the fat table and different dimensions. So these are the contents of the data that we have in this lakehouse. So let's move to the warehouse. We'll see. Let me shift it. We can see the data that we have here. It says date, geography, acne license, medallion, time, trip, weather. Fabric also generated this for me when I created the warehouse. So this data is related to, I think, weather. I haven't had time to like go through the content, content of the tables. I think this is a weather-related table, unlike the ones in the lake house that is related to sales. So we have different tables in the lake house and different tables in the warehouse. So this is the lake house, like I said, we are going to try to move one of these tables. Can someone suggest a table we should move here? Please, not the fat table, because the fat table has quite a lot of rows. So I don't want the pipeline to take like 20 minutes for it runs. So can someone suggest which of these tables, dimension city, dimension customer, date, employee, stock item, which of these tables should we move from this lake house to the warehouse? Anybody? Please, let's.
Dimension customer.
Sorry, I didn't get it.
Dimension customer.
Okay. So someone said dimension customer. Sorry, I can't see your name. I can't really see the screen. I can only see fabric. So someone said we should move dimension.
Her name is Faith.
Okay, all right, Faith. Thank you for your response. So the Faith said we should move dimension customer from this lake house to the warehouse. Please, I want us to look at the warehouse. You see that there's nothing here that says dimension customer. You can see the tables that we have here: date, geography, acne, medallion, time, trip, weather. These are the tables in the warehouse. So we want to move dimension customer from lake house to warehouse. So go to our pipeline. I'm sure we understand it up to this extent. Please, if you don't understand, please feel free to call me back. We are all learning here. I'm sure I'll also gain something from this class also. So the source is our lake house. Lake house that has the table dimension customer. So we'll select the source. When you see, go to browser, you can select, okay, is it an Azure DB, is it a SQL Server, is it a Postgres, or whatever it is. But you know, it's a lakehouse, so we are picking data from a lakehouse. So this is the lakehouse that we want to pick data from. Lakehouse, this lakehouse parameters variable. So I select the lakehouse. So lakehouse, the tables, and the table we want to move is dimension customer, as Faith suggested. So when I click this down here, the tables in this lakehouse shows, and then we can pick the table it is that we want to move. Please give, okay, that's loaded. So you can see the different tables. A minute. Good. So we can see the different tables present in the lakehouse. So like Faith suggested, we should move dimension customer from the lakehouse to the warehouse. So you can see it's selected dimension customer. Any question regarding this, please, if you have questions, feel free to call me back. The major things I've entered here are the source, which is the lakehouse, and it's table. It's a table, so I selected a table. Then Fabric asked me, there are quite a lot of table in the lakehouse. Which of the table? Then I picked dimension customer. Then the next thing we go to is our destination. You can't move data from a source and just leave it in Fabric, leave it in a staging area. You have to tell Fabric, okay, I want to move it from this source to this destination. So our destination is the warehouse, don't forget. So I come here, select browser, then look for the particular warehouse I want to move it to. So I want to move it to this warehouse. So Fabric is asking me, use existing or auto create table. We can't click on use existing because the table does not exist here at the moment. We are going to click on auto create table. So enter the table name. You can choose to rename it, but we still want it to have the same dimension customer. So let me put the name that we want it to have when it gets landed. So customer, dimension customer, good. So source destination. The source is our lakehouse, selected the dimension customer table. Our destination is the warehouse, and we said auto creatable. This is what
Sorry, Funmi.
the table
Somebody is
name.
asking,
Yes.
say,
Yeah.
when we click on use existing, what happens?
Yes, there's really like the table doesn't exist, so there's going to be an issue with that. Like this dimension customer doesn't exist in the lakehouse. It can't, assuming it was there before, it will overwrite what it was there before, but it's not there. So it's nothing is going to get done. So when I click on okay, source destination, by the way,
Just a quick question. When you click on auto create, does it generate from that customer table
yes, like it takes the entirety of that table from where it
of the
was coming
customer?
from. Yes,
Okay.
and create it in the destination. Yes. So the next thing is mapping. We don't really need mapping here. Mapping is maybe when the columns, you want to select particular columns or the columns are not properly arranged, but there's no need for mapping here. Most often time when I use mapping, it's usually when the column orders differ. So there's really nothing about mapping here. Then settings, usually there's nothing to alter there. The major thing you need to fill is your source and your destination. Those are the priorities. Those are the things Fabric needs from you. So you selected our source, selected our destination, you save it, and you can always validate your pipeline. Fabric just tells you, validate just to check, is it good to go? So when I click on validate, Fabric tells me your pipeline has been validated, no errors. So no errors. So when I click on run, it takes me about some seconds and it runs. So your data automatically moves from that source to the destination. That's how a pipeline works. So let's give this some seconds for the pipeline to run. Any question why the pipeline is running? Let me go back to my screen. Any question from anyone? Oftentimes, the what's it called? The time your pipeline takes to run depends on the data that you have. You know, the time
somebody is asking, did you click on validate to run the pipeline?
No, I just click on validate to check if there's any errors within the pipeline. When you click on validate, the Fabric tells you, okay, there are errors here or there are no errors here. Then when you click on validate and it shows no errors, then you click run. So validate and run are two different things. So I was saying that the time your pipeline takes to run depends on the data you are moving. You know, if you're moving a data that has like 10 million rows and one that has 50 rows, it's not going to be the same time. And that's why I was saying for us not to move the fat table that time, because that might take like 10 minutes and we don't have that since we still have quite a lot of demos to do today. So the depends on the number of rows present in your data. So let's see, you can see our pipeline associated. So let's look at this. When you click this thing, it shows you data has been moved from the source to the destination. The table that we loaded had 403 rows. That's why it was quite fast. I mean, sometimes I've spent about 20 minutes on one pipeline before loading a fat table. So let's go back to data moved from our lakehouse to our warehouse. So let's go back to our warehouse now. If you see dimension customer. So we load our warehouse. When you come back, you always have to refresh your warehouse to check if there are new data there. So when I click on refresh, so you can see that dimension customer is now present there. Before it wasn't there. So that's what pipeline basically does. It moves your data from one source to a destination, from a SQL DB to Fabric Lakehouse, from your Postgres database to Fabric Warehouse, from an on-prem SQL server to your Fabric Lakehouse warehouse. So that's just how pipeline works. Any question regarding this before we move to pipelines parameters? Any question?
I think you should like unmute yourself and ask questions instead of, because she's not seeing the chat section.
Can we like ask question? I can't really see the chat.
Okay, she's saying the copy is static, right? When the lakehouse is updated, the copy does not. The copy does not update.
I'm not quite sure I get that.
Maybe what she's trying to say is that probably the copy activity does like, is it like a one-time thing, or probably when you do it in multiple scenarios, then the data updates.
If you want it to update, you have to like set a like schedule rerun on it. So maybe you think maybe the data is an incremental data that gets maybe 20 or 50 rows per day or added to it. So you have to do a schedule run. You don't just say because it has run once, it's going to be the same. You get the content in the lakehouse might keep increasing daily. So you have to do a schedule rerun. Yeah, like set your schedule. Okay, I want this pipeline to run every morning by 8 a.m. So then you can get the updated data in your warehouse. So this is where the schedule run comes in place. I believe that answers your questions.
Yes, please go ahead.
All right, guys. So that's how our pipeline works in Microsoft Fabric. So let me go to my PowerPoint to give it just a small. So the next thing we're going to move on to is parameters. So a parameter is a value that you pass into the pipeline from the outside. You set it once and it stays the same for the entire duration of that specific run. A pipeline basically makes your pipeline easier. Maybe you have like 10 or 15 tables that you want to move. Imagine doing this, what we just did, doing it 15 times. It could take a whole lot of manpower, a whole lot of. I remember when I started with Fabric that time, that's what I used to do. I'll do that, what I just did now. I'll do it like 15 or 20 times. Maybe I want to move 20 tables. I'll do it 20 times to move a particular table, to move 20 tables. So instead of building 20 pipelines to move 20 tables, parameters simplifies that for you. You just build a single pipeline and it moves. Yeah, then you now tell it, okay, I want to move this particular table, I want to move this table, I want to move this table, instead of just building 20 different pipelines to move 20 different tables. So when we go to the demo, we'll see how parameters work. In the example that we have on the screen here, it says source table says 2024. So, but with parameter, you can just put into your pipeline as the table name. And then when you want to run it, you can specify the table you want to run. Is it says 2024 or says 2025? Instead of building one pipeline for says 2024, excuse me. So instead of building one pipeline for says 2024, building another pipeline for says 2025, you can just do one single pipeline. And then you now specify to Fabric, okay, Fabric, I want this particular table to run. I want this to run. So we'll see how parameter work when we go into the demo. So like today, table name customer, tomorrow, table name transactions. Instead of building two different pipelines for this, you can just say use one pipeline, same pipeline, different inputs. So let me go back to Fabric so we can do a demo on how parameters work. Good. So like I was saying, instead of doing this thing, okay, let me just run do like 3 times. Activities, like the way we did this one, copy data. So maybe this one is for dimension customer, like we did earlier. We can come here and say, okay, this one is for dimension city, add another one, add copy data activity. Okay, this one is for dimension state, add another one. Okay, dimension, whatever it is. Imagine doing this for like 20, or it's going to be a lot of process. You enter source dimension, source dimension, source dimension across 20 different pipelines. It's a whole lot of, time and effort. So let's try and do, let's see how parameters simplify this. So I'm going to go back to my workspace and select new item. Please, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to call me back. So when I click on pipeline, let's name this parameter demo. Parameter demo. Great. So like we did earlier, so we created the pipeline parameter demo. What do you want the pipeline to do? Copy data. So select copy data. So this has been done. So this is where it comes into place. Instead of going straight to enter the source destination, okay, source is this lakehouse or source is this, and pick the table. And all. The first thing you need to do is to create parameter. When I'm inside this square, or is it this rectangle now, it shows the source and destination. So you need to leave here first and go to the canvas. When you come to the canvas, you can see different things here. It says parameters, variables, setting, output, and quite a whole lot of others. So it's parameters you want to set. So I create new parameter. Then name your parameter, whatever it is, maybe table name. You can always suggest a name for me, so you won't feel like I'm just doing it to myself. So I'll name our parameter table name. Keep it as string. This default value, you can leave it empty. Or maybe you want to start with a particular table. Maybe you want to start with dimension customer. You can put dimension customer here, but it's just best to leave it empty. So the only thing you need to do is just specify the name of your parameter, which is table name, the type is string, default value. That's all. Then we'll come back to our copy data activities. So when it asks you for your source, so let's go here, it says select source. Our source is our lakehouse. Like we did earlier, we are moving data from our lakehouse to warehouse. So our source is the lakehouse. Let's select the lakehouse that we created. So our source is the lakehouse. I have selected the lakehouse as the source. So table. Here is a table that we want to move, not a file. So enter manually. Then when it says table name, like the one that we did before, when it asks us for table name, we scroll down here and select the table name. But here, we won't select a table name because we want this pipeline to be generic. We want it to be able to run for quite a plethora of other tables. We don't just want it to run for this particular table. So we won't select a table name. So when you come here, it says table name, it says you just click on add dynamic content. And when you click on add dynamic content, this pipeline expression builder comes into play. And trust me, it's not so hard. So when you click on the parameter you created, just click on this. You can see the parameter we created called table name. Click on it. This expression, Fabric automatically builds the expression for you. The only thing you need to do is just click on the parameter. Enter your lakehouse. Let me just do a recap. Enter your lakehouse, select table. Don't pick the particular table. Click on add dynamic content. And when you click on add dynamic content, go to parameters, select the parameter which you created, then click OK. So you can see our source is still our lakehouse, but no specific table was picked. We just selected the parameter as the source. So same thing with the destination. Our destination is the warehouse. So let me go to the warehouse. So yeah, warehouse. So auto create table, use existing. You can't say use existing because table does not exist there before. So the table name also add dynamic content. That's the major difference between building a normal pipeline and a pipeline that has parameter. In a normal pipeline, like the one we did earlier, we selected the source, we selected the table, and we click on the destination and all. But when you're building a pipeline with parameters, a generic pipeline, you don't just select the table. It's always the source. When it comes to that, you click on the add dynamic content. Also, when you get to the destination part, you select your warehouse, but you also click on add dynamic content. And as usual, like we did earlier, our dynamic content is the parameter that we created. You click OK. So we can see, by the way, I want to rename this our copy data to something else. Parameter demo. So let me just do a recap. First thing is this.
Sorry, Funmi, please, can I see
Yeah?
the destination part again? The destination part. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah. So this is the destination. Our destination is our warehouse.
Okay, so
Just like
we
the one we
added
did
the same
before.
pipeline expression in the name of the table.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly,
thank you.
yes.
Thank you.
So that's just it. The source is lakehouse. The table is the pipeline expression. The destination is the warehouse. The table is the pipeline parameter expression. So that's just the difference between this and the normal pipeline that we did earlier. So when I click on save this, save, then let me click on validate. I think someone asked a question about validating before. So click on validate. You see, your Fabric tells you your pipeline has been validated. That means there's no error. Sometimes there could be errors. I'm sure there's quite a lot of times that when I was doing like 20 copy data job, like doing 20 pipelines, I used to put the source and destination as the same thing. When you're doing something over and over again, it's like trying to do all this. I think, what do they call it? Is it mimic word or something? When they say you repeat a word 20 times, when you get to like the 10th time, you start doing mistake and all. So when I used to build pipeline, do like 20 pipeline and all, I'll get maybe pipeline 12. Then I'll start mixing things up. I'll use the lakehouse as source, use this lakehouse as destination, use the Azure DB as source and destination, like just minute error like that, and you don't know. So when you click on validate, Fabric tells you, okay, there's an issue here. Maybe there's an issue with your source. Sometimes Fabric can tell you your source and destination are the same thing. So you need to check what it is you've done. So the validate icon is just for you to check if there are no error. So you can see there are no error here. Then the next thing we do is run. When we click run, Fabric asks you, what data do you want me to move? So let's go back to our lakehouse. By the way, this is where you enter the table name. Let's go back to our lakehouse that we have. So we can see we have different tables here. Can somebody suggest a table we should move first? Anybody? Anyone?
Let's move employee. Oh, sorry. City.
Okay, dimension city. So let's go back to dimension city. So let's run the pipeline. Click on dimension. So the way when I click on this, okay, now this dimension city runs. It takes dimension city from the lake house to the warehouse. I can also decide and come back here. I don't want to move dimension city. I want to move the second table. Move it. Dimension customer. Move it also. Dimension state. Move it. So instead of creating like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pipelines to move different tables, you just do one and set a parameter. And when you set a parameter, you can always tell Fabric, move this particular table, move this particular table. So that's that parameter helps you. You don't need to be creating 60 pipelines to move 60 tables. Only one pipeline is
Funmi, I have a
enough.
question.
Yes, go ahead, Melga.
I understand this concept, but the issue I have is, let's say you don't want to come here to be typing the name of the city, sorry, the name of the dimension manually. How do you dynamically automate the pipeline to move all the tables in the source, the destination with this parameter?
All the tables at once.
All the tables at once, yes.
No, on scenarios that I've had to move all the tables at once, the thing I've done was database mirroring to move all the tables at once. It was data. I remember I did a database mirroring that time to move some like a particular set of tables from a lake house to a warehouse. So I did database mirroring for that.
Okay,
Yeah.
no problem. Thank you.
Yeah, so when I click on this, okay, dimension city runs, and like I said, we can always come back and put a new table name, put table name as many as we want in the same pipeline. So to move different tables. So let's give this like some seconds for it to run. Let me look at another table that we can move. So we can also move dimension employee. We already have customer there before from our initial pipeline, and we just move city. So let's also try and move dimension employee. So let's see, still running. So it has finished running. So let's just look at it. Successfully moved dimension. What did you move again? City to from the lake house to the warehouse. So let's check the warehouse if we have the table there. Okay. So you can see it's already there now. Dimension city. Dimension customer was the one we moved with the initial pipeline, and the pipeline with parameters was dimension city. So I'm going to come out to this pipeline again and use this same pipeline again to move another table. So when I click on run, it asks me, okay, what table do you want to move this time? So I just specify dimension employee, dimension employee. Okay. So you start running, it moves the same table. So that's how parameters simplify the work. Like I said, when I started working with Fabric, the mistake I did was creating quite a lot of this copy data for the numerous tables I wanted to move, and it was just quite draining. You needed to have seen my job when I found out something like parameter exists, where I don't need to create this copy data quite a lot of times. So that's basically how parameters work. Do we have questions before we move to variables? We'll do a demo on variables also. So the pipeline has finished running. Let's look at it. Move from lakehouse to warehouse. Let's go back to our warehouse and check if dimension employee is now there. So like I said, always do a refresh so you can see the new tables that have come into the warehouse. So refresh. So you can see dimension employee is now in the warehouse. So we use the same pipeline to move dimension employee and dimension city. Instead of creating two pipelines, just a single pipeline to move these two tables. So any question, everyone, before we move to variables? Questions,
Okay.
questions.
I also want to ask, at the point of point to a destination, you can also create a new schema, right?
Point of destination. Let me go back to share my
I mean,
screen.
when you are setting up destination, you can also like create
Yeah, sure.
like create a new, yeah. Just want to say that.
Yes.
You can
Sure.
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, you can always create a new lakehouse or a new warehouse or wherever it is you want to move it to. You don't necessarily have to move it to this lakehouse warehouse that we have. You can always create a new one, select a new destination, set up a new destination. So yeah. Any other question before we move to variables? Any question, anyone?
I think Taiwo Shobande is trying to ask the question.
Okay, hello, Taiwo. Can you go ahead?
Hello, Taiwo. I think it was a mistake. You can go ahead, please.
Okay, all right. So let me go to my PowerPoint and just do a 1 minute summary on variables. Good. So variables. So what is a variable? I like to describe a variable in a pipeline as a sticky note. So it's a short-term memory, like I say, a sticky note, a value that the pipeline creates or changes while it runs. You think of variable in a pipeline like a sticky note, a short-term memory. In a standard data pipeline, each activity, like the activity within copy data activity, the one we use the moving our table from source to destination. Each activity like that copy data activity, they usually forget everything the moment the pipeline finishes running. So a variable allows the pipeline to remember a specific piece of information so it can use it in the next step. So like when the pipeline runs, okay, it's finished running, what else? That's the end. But when you want the pipeline to remember, okay, this specific part, that's where you create a variable. I'm sure there are quite a whole lot of applications of variables in pipelines. Well, the one of the major ways I use variables is incremental data. When I have a data that is constantly increasing, like a facts table, when I have a facts table there's usually like a new input, new data, new rows almost every minute, every second. You don't want the pipeline to start running from ID 1 to ID 1 million every time. It's a whole lot of stress and all. So with a variable, you can tell the pipeline, okay, yesterday you stopped running at ID 500. So now run from ID 501. You get, so a variable is like a reminder, a sticky note to the pipeline. Don't just run everything. I want you to remember this particular piece of information. Okay, you ran yesterday from ID 1 to 1 million. You don't want everything to load again. You want the pipeline to start running from 101 to the end. So a variable comes in and it gives the pipeline a memory. Okay, remember this. Always go along with this particular piece of information. So like I said, there are quite a lot of applications of variables, but I'm going to use the scenario of working with variable with incremental data here. So these are usually the steps when I set up variables for a pipeline. The first thing I do is always to do a lookup activities. A lookup basically tells the pipeline, look at this particular table, check the last ID there. You want to check the last ID. Okay, the last ID is ID 500. Then the variable comes in. When the ID 500, okay, ID 500 is the last thing. So that variable acts as a sticky note. The lookup basically just checks the last row. You just go through the table and check, okay, the last row, yes, ID 500. The lookup can't do much more than that. like the name implies, lookup. It can only look up the table and tell you, okay, this is what I saw. I looked it up. This is what I saw. I saw that the last row in this table is at the 500. The lookup can't do more than that. So that's where the variable comes in. So the variable holds star 500 as the 5,000 rows. That okay, I'm going to hold this as sticky notes, like as a memory, as a reminder. Okay, this particular number, this is where I stop. So that's that variable comes into play instead of running the entirety. Because recently I had to work with a table that has quite a lot of rows. It was a fast table and it was quite some. I mean, this table used to take like about 20 or 15 minutes to run, and it was just quite an Herculean task. I mean, having to wait for a table to take 15-20 minutes to run, and this was the table that we set a schedule of 15 minutes on. We set a 15-minute schedule for it to run every day, because it was a table that was quite fundamental. So we set the table to run 15 minutes every day. And if you set the table to run 15 minutes every day and the table is taking like 20 minutes to run, I mean, that's just quite some, that's a whole lot of time wastage and a whole lot of, it doesn't just make sense. So variable comes into play. Instead of running the entirety of everything, I want you to always remember where it ran last. As at yesterday, stop at particularly this row 900. So today run from this. So that's that variable. So that's one of the applications. Like I said, there are quite a lot of applications of variable. That's one of the applications acting as a sticky notes to a pipeline. Let me see if I still have a last slide here. So without variables, this is just a summary of how variable works. Without variable, it does not know where it stops. It may reload old data. With variables, so you remember the last loaded ID, it loads only new rows and is faster and efficient. Like I said, if you're loading a fast table, sometimes a fast table that is quite incremental and there's always new rows every second, it's going to be quite a lot of time wastage for you to be running the entirety of that particular table every day. Every day is a whole lot of time running that pipeline. So with variables, you remember the last loaded ID, loads only new rows and it's much faster. I mean, I should have changed this to much more faster because you don't want to see how faster it is. I mean, at the initial stage, when you load the table the first time, it takes a while. But at the second instance, at the third instance, like a second, 2 seconds, the table has already loaded because there's already a variable there that reminds it load from this particular row. So let's go to our demo, Fabric, to do a short demo. Yeah, so there's also one thing let me go back to pipeline demo. Okay, no, yeah, let me just do it while doing the demo for the parameter. So let's go back to our workspace, new item, pipeline. So let me name this pipeline variable demo, pipeline variable demo. So like I mentioned earlier, while I was showing the slide, I told you that the first thing is to get a lookup activity. And that lookup activity is just to look at the last row of that particular table. And for this demo, we're going to use our fat table. So this might take a while for it to run, for the table to run. Because I think the first table that we have in this our lakehouse has, I think, about 5 million rows when I was looking at it yesterday. So we're going to use our fat table. We're going to move it from source to a destination. So the first thing is to create a lookup activity. If you come here, if you come to activity, you can see lookup here. So click on lookup. It comes here, bring it here. Let me bring you the activities that we need. So lookup activities. So the next thing is variable, set variable, lookup variable. If you remember the PowerPoint I showed, first is the lookup variable, then the copy data to move the data. So set variable, good. So, but I'm going to join this together so when this runs, basically telling our Fabric when this runs, this should run, and then this should run. So good. So the first thing is to set our lookup lookup data, and this is just usually a SQL script to check the last ID for that particular thing. So like I said, we're using the sales, the fat sales. Let me go back to that. This is the table we are using, the fat sale. You can see there are quite a lot of columns here: city key, customer key, and all. We have to use a column that is unique. You can't just use a column that's like this part. Let me enlarge it. You can't use this particular column because when you set a lookup and it looks up this appears too many times. So oftentimes it's always the ID column that we use, this sale queue. Because if you look at it, you see they are quite they are unique numbers. Nothing is being repeated here. Is the key. So we're going to use this particular key as a lookup. We're going to tell Fabric, look at this table, this fat fields table, and tell me what's the last row there. Return the last row. Okay, this is the entire table. Well, look at the last row. What's the last row there? Give me the number. I need that number. So let's go back to our demo. So we're going to come here. You can decide to name your lookup activity, whatever it is, but you can just leave it there. So you come here to setting. So our connection is let me check. Okay, I think we have it now. Where else? But I wanted us to use but I don't want to go to that because when you want to select a lakehouse here, lakehouse won't give you the option to enter a query. You have to use the SQL endpoints of that lakehouse. I don't know if I'm beginning to speak too much what's it called, grammar. I don't know if I'm beginning to speak too much grammar. But when you want to use lookup, it won't tell you. The thing you're supposed to use like a query, like select star from fat sales, where the sales key equals max ID. You get a SQL query to just check the last ID. But when you come, let me just go back.
Funmi,
Yeah.
you talked about using max ID. What if the unique identifier column is text? Does it work does it also work?
Oftentimes, no, I haven't seen a scenario like that. Oftentimes, usually, like I said, usually the ID column.
The ID,
because
and it's
yeah,
usually numeric.
it's usually numeric. The ID,
Okay,
sales
okay.
ID, fat ID, and also it's usually numeric.
Okay, thank you.
I want to
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to use a table in the warehouse. Let me check the table I can use in this warehouse. Let me look for a fat table here. Okay, let me check this with the table. Okay, so like see this particular column, date ID. So I think we should use this particular date ID. I think it's quite unique. Yep. So date ID. Let's move the weather table, date ID. So come back to pipeline variable demo. Warehouse. So that's our warehouse. So this, like I said, is a SQL query. So you don't just, it's a SQL query that says you're not selecting a table. Like I said, it's a lookup. You want to check what's the content of this table. It's a query that says, okay, check the max ID from this particular table. So let me write the query. What's the name of that column again? I think date ID. Let me check. Yeah, date ID. Yeah, date ID. Select mass date ID. Date ID. Let me check how it is written. The date. Okay, there's no underscore. Just date ID. Date ID. Yeah. I think the table name is weather. I think something weather. Let me check. From weather, yeah, weather. That's not just for the lookup. Like I said, just to select the max ID to get the last item, because when the pipeline starts running, that's why we have the lookup as the first thing here. The first thing is to get the last thing that was run, to check the last row that was that we got into the table. So the first thing is to get that last row, and that's what the script says. Select the max ID from that table, from table weather. So that's it. Any question regarding that before we move to setting of the variable? Any question, please? If you have question, just unmute. I can't see the hand raise up or anything. All right, so the next thing is to set the variable. Like you can always leave the name or edit it whichever you want, but just leave it like this. So set variable, pipeline variable, pipeline return variables. What we are working with is pipeline variables. So let's name our variable last ID. Just let's list last ID. Last ID.
Sorry, Funmi, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So let's assume that when we get to set variable, okay, assume that on the pipeline itself, where we created that parameter the other time, there was variable beside it, right? What if that was the place we created our variable, and we can now reference it from here now? Is it possible that way too?
I do not understand. Can you take that again?
Okay, can you just cancel this for now? Cancel this variable you're trying to create.
Okay.
Click on the interface, like the empty space there.
Okay.
I see variables here, right?
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that, can I create the variable here and reference it in that set variable activity?
Yeah, you can. I just do this so like you can see the step, so you can see the first thing, so it doesn't complicate. Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, if you use this, it doesn't like it won't come to canvas, but the canvas shows you what's the first step, second step, and third step. So that's why I use the canvas method. So when I come to this, so when I come to the set variable, so pipeline variable, that's what you're using. To create new variable. I named our variable last ID. Last ID. I'm changing it to an integer since the column is an integer.
Shit. Come on. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Is someone asking a question?
I'm going to mute the person. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Oh, he's already muted. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, all right. So when you come to value, it says add dynamic content. I remember, with this dynamic content, we were setting up our parameters. So you remember. So when I come here, it says add dynamic content. Please, if you have questions, just stop me. Anyway, I'm trying to take it slow, so it won't look like too much English. If you have questions, just stop me wherever it is I am. So I'll click on add dynamic content. So our dynamic content here is a lookup. You can see we have a lookup activity that we created. So the dynamic wants the variable to look at the lookup. The lookup basically tells you this is the last row. The last row is 3000. It has that. So you're telling this variable, I want you to look at what's the content of that lookup. Get the data from the lookup. Check the lookup to get the last row. So like I said, the variable is a sticky note. Where does it get the content of the sticky note from? It gets it from the lookup activity. So the lookup activity is that. And when you come to here, you have to edit this to to get the maximum ID. Let me just edit it. Right, the Fabric already made this easier. I can help you with the expression. So first row dot masking. I don't know if I'm writing this because I've done this quite like sometimes, so I think I've crammed this to my head. So, but you can always use Copilot to help you with any expression. Although Fabric generates most of the expression for you already, but you can always use Copilot to generate the expression. So when I click on this, it says, okay, the next thing I go to my copy data activities. Do we have questions? Please, let's ask questions. Let me first click on okay. This mask key, it comes from this. Can we see it as mask key? Mask is just the last ID. We want it. Okay, select the last ID. Select row from that table. Select it and name it mask key. I think it's just simple SQL script as mask key. So that's where the mask key in this place comes out from. The mask key that I wrote here.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead, Marga.
When you can you click on the variable? Variable activity.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, not this variable. I think it's your lookup. Sorry.
Okay, lookup.
When you wrote the query,
Yeah.
I see that you checked first row only. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so it's like just generate the first row, like maximum ID is only one thing, right?
It's only one row, yes.
It's only one row, so it's just that first row that I need. Only that one row that I need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, any question before we move to copy data? Copy data is just simple process that we've done before. So the major thing is for you to set the lookup and to set the variable. The lookup is just to check what's the last ID. The variable is to pocket the last ID. A sticky note that holds the last ID. Then the copy data is just to enter your source and destination. So when the pipeline is running, you first check what ID was loaded yesterday. What was the last ID loaded yesterday? The variable reminds it was this, and then the pipeline runs from that particular row. So it's as simple. I don't know if it's as simple.
Oh, Funmi, I have a question.
As I've described. Yeah, go ahead.
But this does not work in case there are retrospective changes to the data, like the old data.
Yeah, can you shed
Okay,
more
what
light
I
on
mean
that?
is this. Let's say there are some old data now that probably there were changes made to those old data. Maybe I would like to give an example. Maybe, for example, we loaded data now this week, but maybe it's an hospital setting and somebody went into the application and changed something about a particular patient. And that was 2 weeks ago activity, but he went to update something there on the ERP system or something. That means that by the time we do increments, this thing gives an incremental refresh, this variable based on the last ID and the rest. That means that when we are loading in, it's only loading a new set of rows of data that probably wasn't there before based on the max key. So that means that if something happens to old data, it's not going to get that update. So that means that what I'm saying is that it doesn't work for. Does this work for incremental?
It's majorly for incremental.
Load?
Yeah, it's majorly for
incremental in the sense that where old data changes, kind of. I don't know whether what I'm saying even makes sense.
Yeah,
sorry,
I understand your question. Maybe data from 2 years or a year ago changes.
Not 2 years per se. So data that is not within how will I put the word? That is not within the new rules that we are loading. Let me put it that way, Sha. Don't mind me. I don't know how best to put my words, but
maybe in that kind of scenario, we can use the I don't think this comes into play there, but I think I've got that kind of thing before. I had to use the offset option in Fabric.
Offset.
There's an append, one other one, then offset. So I remember I've used the offset in just one scenario before, where there was changes to the previous state data. So we had to use offset.
Data.
Yeah,
exactly.
we had to use the offset. So.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. So now let's move to our source and destination. So our source is the warehouse. Don't forget this particular table, this weather table. Good. So warehouse. Give me a minute. Okay. So we're going to use a query for this. Unlike the copy data activity that we did before, we used table. We didn't use query. We used table to pick out the table that we need. But when you're doing a set variable, you have to always tell the pipeline, tell Fabric that, okay, you don't just want it to load the table. You want the variable application to come into place. So it's usually going to be a select query. So select star to pick out everything from the particular table, whatever table. Select star from so and so table where this equals to the variables. So I'm going to write the query here. Like I said, pipelines, Fabric helps you with some of the queries, what's it called, Fabric expressions. But you can always, I think it's just like a simple SQL query. So it's not really so out of this word. So I'm going to do a select star to get the table, and I think the table name is weather. Yeah, weather. Date, I think it's date ID. Yeah, date ID. Date ID is greater than. Where's greater than? Good. Greater than. Variables. Our variable's name is called. Let me check now.
Last ID. Last
Okay.
ID.
Thank you. Last ID. Oh, the variables are roots before deleted. Sorry. Curly brackets. Yeah. Variables. So last ID. Good. So this basically tells Fabric to select star from our table. Our table name is called weather, where the date ID is the variables. The variable is the sticky note. It holds the last ID. So you're just telling the pipeline is just you telling the pipeline, select star. Let me select all from the table where the last ID is greater than the content of the variable. So you're not telling it to reload the entirety of everything. You're just telling Fabric instead of reloading everything. I mean, the first thing, initial run, is for you to reload, is for you to or do a copy data to move this table from the source to destination. But in subsequent this thing, you don't want everything. You don't want the entirety of row 1 to row 1 million to row. So this is just specifying that select star, but only where the ID is greater than the variable. So do we have any question concerning this, guys? Any question before I do a run? Any questions, please, let's ask. Anybody?
Guys, please, let's ask question now.
Oh, it's supposed to be an answer.
I believe it's clear to them. That's why probably you are not asking question. You can just move on. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. So we've set our lookup to get the last ID. We've set our variable to keep the last ID, keep it as a sticky note. Then our copy data to move from the source to, okay, let's select our destination. Let's move it to the lake house. Let me select one of the lake house. I think like what Benga was saying the other time, you can always create a new fabric item. You can always create a new lake house to move it there, or you can just choose you can always create a new lake house, new warehouse to move it to, or you can just move it to one of the ones that you have before. So I just move it to this lake house, the one of the lake house I have here before. So that's that. Do we have any question regarding that? Any question, anyone?
It's clear so far.
Okay. Yeah, so lakehouse is table. Table name, I think is weather. You can still retain that table. Retain the table name. So yeah, this was the override, the upstats I was talking about before. It's still a preview function in Fabric, so I don't think it's as accurate as we want it, since there's still a preview there. So
I
yeah.
usually see it in Azure Data Factory.
Oh,
I've
okay.
not used it here before.
I always avoid using it because anything I see that is in preview before it can load wrong data for me. So I always avoid using anything I see that is in preview. I try to use set variable to So let me click on save. Save what it is that we've done. Save successfully, validate. So it says your pipeline has been validated. So when I click on run it. Do we have any questions so far while we wait for this to run? Hopefully we don't have any errors yet. We've covered pipeline, setting up a pipeline, done parameters, and now this is variable. So 3 major concepts. Any question regarding anything that we've done so far? Please, let's ask before I ask my own question.
I mean, thank you so much, Funmi. This was very, very enlightening. Like the way you made it's very simple. The way you made it very simple. I really enjoyed the class.
Thank you, Genga. We are all still learning, so.
Okay.
I'm not sure where our copy data field. Yeah, because we do not have this initial table in the what's it called?
In the warehouse.
Yes. So, but like I said, to load a fat table, I don't want it to take a while. So it was because you are telling it to check the last ID, but this table doesn't exist in where it is. It's checking at the moment where it's supposed to load it. So, and I do
We
not
can
want to run
apply it
that
to dimension table too, right?
Yeah.
Case of.
Yeah, but that the tricky thing is doing with dimension table. You might not find a what's it called, a particular column that works, like the column that we use for this, a unique column. You get something like this. It's quite often difficult to get that in most dimension. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's that.
Wow.
All right, guys. Any question based on what we've done so far? Please, let's ask.
Anybody, any questions? I think if there are no questions, we can call it a day. There are no questions.
All right, guys.
Okay, somebody wants to ask the question.
Thank you very much. Okay.
All right, thank you, to Faith.
Okay. So, guys, thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Funmi, for everything. I mean, for the first time, this is the simplest way I've learned variable and parameters. In fact, my first time I started, I saw it, somebody did it. It looked so complex to me, sincerely. But you made it so simple today. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. In fact, we would like to have you more and more again. I'm telling
Please, you know the discussion we had before I got here. So
please prepare. Next month again, we'll call you.
I want to have 8 years experience before I come back here.
So no, it does not matter. The little you teach us. I mean, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We'll be happy to see you again anytime from now. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I will let you guys know if we're having another section like this anytime soon. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Me.
Thank
you,
you,
guys. Bye. Yeah, take care.